So you have to push play. Or record. Okay. Should I press record? Oh my gosh, we're live. Let's get it started.
I wish that I could see myself.
There's a mirror right there. Hello, lovers and friends, and welcome to the Awaken podcast. My name is Sharun, and
My name is Tyra.
And we're excited to have you here. We are
Yes.
sisters.
Yes.
And we're excited to talk about many subjects such as spirituality, womanhood, sisterhood, sexuality, and much more, I'm sure.
Anything under the sun, honestly.
Under the sun, under the moon, under the stars. Anything we can pretty much come up with, we're going to be talking about on this podcast. So welcome to our space. Get comfortable, take a breath, relax.
Have some tea.
Get some tea, pull up a seat.
Sisterhood is such a weird parallel. Like,
Yeah.
I have two sisters that I know of.
No way. That's actually funny.
Yes. And sisterhood is just something that I've always admired. So, and it's always in friendships, that's always what I wanted.
Yeah.
And we were just so close growing up, and we really didn't have any other choice but to be best friends.
Yeah.
And so,
Energetically, it always felt like we were like piled on top of each other, like as siblings, just like
very close
into one energy, like always super connected.
Yeah, and we had our own separate rooms, but we chose to sleep in one bed. It was a choice we made. And obviously our brother is included in that, but the girls, like, we were all...
Yeah, there's 3 girls and one boy.
And so, yeah, I just felt like I always understood that my siblings were this reflection of me that I didn't really need to be because it had already existed. But it was, and it was just this potential that I could have been. So I love, especially as we got older and like learned ourselves.
Yeah.
I could say, you know, each one of us brings something super special. Even though we had so many similarities, and most people thought we were like triplets or quadruplets.
Yeah.
And so I just love the idea of that. And then taking that concept or way of thinking to your friendships and seeing people that way of like, you're just this expression that exists and this potential that I could have been, but I'm glad I'm experiencing it in this outer body way, because then I can appreciate it so much more.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that perspective a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like my perspective of sisterhood has evolved so much throughout time. And I guess how it originated within us as siblings was just like friendship. Obviously, I feel like this is gonna get emotional. I'm trying not to go there.
Trying to get comfortable,
but like maybe I need to go there. Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just meant to me someone that could be with me in life and encourage me, watch me grow, nurture me. I nurture them as well, and I like that you put it as someone that is a reflection of you, but they're different from you, but you can respect that as being different from you and not try to like absorb it or become it. I really like that perspective.
No, I loved that there was every flavor. Grown up a little bit, and it's not about how other people perceive you anyways.
And I think that definitely carries over into friendship for sure, especially with other women. It's like learning, okay, someone might like your flavor, what you bring to the table, or they might enjoy mine more, and that's okay.
And that was harder with people I didn't know. I always wanted to protect you guys and like be there for you guys. And that was later as I grew out of my like bratty sister phase, like I hate you guys phase. But it was
I
my
hate you, but
truest
I would
self.
do anything for you.
Yeah. But my truest self was like, I would ride for you guys over wanting to accept anyone else that deeply, you know? Just because I felt, you know, you guys came here with me.
Like I've known you from day one. Like I was only on this earth without you for like a couple of years, and then there you was, and then there we was. So it's like I could see why you would feel that way. For myself, I
I'm
think
very loyal.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
I think for myself, it was kind of the opposite because I had a lot of healing to do around sisterhood and where my sisterly friendship and friendship with women started to begin with, which is with your sisters and with your mother and women in your family. And so really taking the time to do that work, I think I had originally been sort of running from my sisters in a way and like not trying to call you guys my best friends because that was kind of painful and harder to do. Like we had been so close as kids, and then as you get older, we kind of branched out a little bit and started to see kind of what the real world is like, as one would say. I kind of get caught up in trying to say, this is my best friend, this is my best friend, this is my best friend, instead of having to look inward and look at my home and within myself and see myself within you guys and be like, this is my best friend. And this has always been my best friend.
Yeah.
That was like hard to say right now, but it's like, it's so true. It's so true. And it's such an interesting thing that we can all have such different journeys with this. I could have grown out of this as I am, or I could have continued on the other path as some people might and be like, it's too hard to call my sister or my sibling my best friend just because I associate them with what happened in my childhood or the trauma that I come from. So
I think a
couldn't
lot
do
of
that.
people think that we have a trauma bond. A lot of people project that onto us.
Yeah.
And I had to do a lot of self-reflection. But before we get into that, quick story time, I guess.
Okay.
I feel like I contributed or at least predicted that I would have a brother in this lifetime. I felt like I knew it was coming. I knew that we would experience that. So this is what I mean by I really see you. I see you because I see myself. I always try to see my higher self, I guess, in you guys. Even though I know you always bring something new to the table, and I hope for that. I hope you challenge my perspective or challenge my personality outside of my comfort zone. But yeah, I truly deeply recognize something within my siblings that is like higher, I guess. Like they're higher in nature.
Ooh, I got chills.
Yeah,
I definitely resonate with that as far as siblings, but all of this talking about sisterhood is just making me think like journey with it hasn't been easy necessarily. Like I feel that I want to be able to say like all these positive things, but I feel like to be honest with myself and just be honest about the topic in general, I have to, even this bond of sisterhood that me and you have required me to do so much inner work and so much shadow work that it's like not even funny. Because growing up, that was one of the reasons I was constantly searching for a best friend or someone that was a female or a feminine outside of my home to sort of, you know, give me that validation or that equal relationship dynamic. Hard to see where that pain originated from because I felt like it came from, you know, comparison as young women, as sisters, and not feeling equally celebrated for our individuality and our differences always in our home or society or wherever that may come from. So that really does trickle into friendship and every other connection that you have with other women in your life.
Yeah.
So whether you continue that pattern by treating others that way, or you meet others that project that onto you, that comparison or competition, whatever it may be. So just recognizing that, like, this is for those that maybe can't relate to having a close relationship with their sister, or even other women as a woman themselves, that like it may not always be that way, because for me it wasn't always the greatest, and it has evolved into something that is great, and that is filled with love, and that is powerful, and that is empowering to me. Whereas previously it was sort of like kind of trauma bonding and trying to connect with people for subconscious reasons that were not for my highest benefit. And to be real with yourself about something like that is like constantly looking yourself in the mirror and seeing possibly what you think is the ugliest part of yourself, and being like, I'm going to accept this so that I can accept something more loving and more open and more built on something that's real in my life.
Yeah. Wow.
And that is crazy.
Good for you. Yeah. Doing that work. But I'm not perfect in this either. Like, I definitely can remember I didn't have like healthy boundaries, so it's like always seeing the good in somebody. But with my siblings, I guess it's like I too had to, you guys were always younger, so it's like I also like really, really badly wanted a best friend. I always felt like I didn't have that. I always like befriended the bully and stuck it out, because those were my only options. Like, it was the way of survival in that environment. And so I too really wanted sisterhood and outside of family, because you guys were just so young. It's like I got to go home and be silly with you guys and create with you guys and bond with you guys in that way. But it was just like I needed somebody my age to talk about the things I wanted to talk about, and like you were the closest thing to that. But I still had that same urge, and like I said, still needed to work on having that same healthy, I guess, compassion. It's really just compassion for other friends, because I think that competition program is set pretty young. Yeah. And for me, it was like sports, and dance is like a very beautiful aesthetic, so it's bodies. You're looking at bodies, you're looking at how someone moves, and it can be very quick to turn a friend into an enemy. And so it's finding that healthy balance. And so.
It's so interesting, the difference in experience as far as like an older sister versus a younger sister versus the youngest sister. And I think that really shows as far as you feeling like, to some degree, I also was going to say this, to some degree, each of us as sisters, I think it's kind of funny, we were all looking for a best friend.
Yeah.
I'm sure even our younger sister could relate to like trying to find a best friend, and then kind of being met with this, not necessarily distaste from certain people, but like something always kind of goes wrong with this. Like I can't really, almost like I have to deal with the inner issue that I have towards being friends with other women, where that has been rooted from my original, like my family, whatever that originated from first, before it can be like a real solid connection outside of myself.
Getting to the core.
I'm starting to realize that, because the sooner that I was able to, face that fear of being your best friend, like even recent times, it's been like hard for me to say for some reason.
Like that vulnerability that it takes.
And
letting
like,
your guard down.
For some reason with other people that sometimes I even barely knew, I'd be like, you're my best friend, you're my best friend. Like just giving the label out, like, but I'm not willing to like look at, first of all, where does the core wound come from that I'm constantly looking outside of myself for that like gratification? And then second of all, why can't I see the people that actually love me unconditionally, my sisters, as my best friend? What is the block there? Like, and that was,
I think we push away, like that's our natural response, is like push away the people who are going to really treat you right. But it's like, even like transporting back to that time, we weren't necessarily treating each other right. But I just think that we had the most compassion for each other just because we saw what each other was dealing with behind the scenes every day.
Yes. We saw what each other was going through up to that point. And that is really wild.
Obviously, if I could go back in time, I'd be a way better sister than I was.
Yeah, me too.
But I do acknowledge and like forgive myself, and like I have
Yes.
done all that work, that ugly work, you know, facing that shadow of like, yeah, I was very toxic at points and I said some mean things.
Yeah.
But I think that's the, you know, thing about especially siblinghood. It's
really
like,
be called that as well.
yeah, it's like you're practicing. Like, I read somewhere like your parents are the first people that can like break your heart, you know? It's the first heartbreak you can experience is with your parents. And I think siblings are the same way. It's like, this is the first time you're establishing like a long-term relationship with someone, even if it doesn't go past, you know, your teens.
Yeah.
It's like probably one of the longest relationships you'll have because most times you're living under the same roof for a long period of time.
Yeah. And they get to see you on a level that like most people might not get to know you.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, like, the more I'm thinking about it, that literally the more that you basically run from that, you don't want to face where that core wound comes from of like, why do I feel so heartbroken around friendship, around sisterhood? Why do I feel that? When you lean into that, it is obviously much easier to, you know, create friendships in the future. But like, I don't know, healing the original wound is just like so powerful. Oh, and I realized that I was avoiding healing that original wound because to some degree I was like so traumatized by it.
No,
when you're in that environment was based on your traumas, of course you're gonna run from that.
I was really like, as you were thinking, I literally wanted to say like, you don't want to re-traumatize yourself, but you don't want to like purposefully put yourself in a situation where you're going to get your feelings hurt. Like, it's very hard to
It's tough.
do.
And it can be so triggering. And that's what some people don't realize, like, if they project onto our relationship, whatever they might project. Like, I've had to deal with so many triggers just to be around you because of the trauma we experienced as kids.
Together, yeah. So it's
So-
like, people think it would be easy to form just another trauma bond where we just enable each other. But I think
it's not me getting to be bullshit. It's not me getting to be enabled in my lower self.
Right.
I have to show up and I have to really be accountable for myself.
Yeah.
And like be responsible with my emotions and my triggers.
Yeah.
So like it's real. Like I understand why people actually don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
Because
And
it
I feel
takes
like-
a lot of being honest with yourself.
Yes, I have had, if you guys watch our YouTube channel, I've had so many people in my life try to come down on me because I'm just naturally a very optimistic person. I have a Sag moon, if that tells you anything.
Yeah.
I also feel like I'm very intuitive, so I will be very optimistic if I can feel that everything is going to be okay, if I'm calm enough to get to that place. So I feel like a lot of the time when I say spiritual, I'm referring to, because there's so many different types and kinds, but I'm referring to you're co-creating your life with God. You understand that like you can't do everything, you can't manhandle everything on your own and live in like this overly masculine energy. You're allowing time for receptivity, you know, prayer setting or intention setting, self-care. And you understand that there's a flow. You can't just force certain outcomes. You have to be in flow with, you know, what's destined for you, what you came here to experience. So it's important that people, especially when we're talking about projection, it's like you don't need to check people along their spiritual journey most times unless they're doing something that's harming, obviously themselves, but like people. You really should just let people learn. You should let people make mistakes. That's what I'm learning along my spiritual journey, because even the mistakes hold such important lessons. Important, like, you know, turns and navigations that you really need along the journey. So it's like, even if we were to try to enable each other, I think that we're both dedicated to working with spirit, working with God, however you guys want to say it, you know, ancestors, that we are checked.
Yeah.
We are checked if something's off.
To some degree, we each have our own individual relationship with like our higher selves or a higher power. So we know, like, okay, even if I'm falling off or if I had an attitude that day and said something I didn't mean, I'm going to apologize and I'm going to take accountability and I'm going to talk about what I need to talk about and get
it's
it off
trusting
my chest
to
properly.
So it's trusting that there's this overseer, right? It's trusting that there's this there's angels, there's signs, there's synchronicities that will happen within the course of your relationship that will determine how it continues to move forward. If that person's doing their soul work, it will be clear to you.
Yeah.
And if you're doing your soul work, then it'll be clear. And like showing up, that's a thing that was hard for me, was like for someone who lived like trying to control life by the horns and like was this doer and do-gooder and thought that like I had to be on go mode all the time. It's like I now have to sit back. If I want to be in a friendship or a relationship, I have to like release those reins now. And I have to be like, I trust you.
Yeah.
So not only do I expect you to be doing that same work I'm doing, but it's like, I trust that you're doing it. And that is a scary thing.
Trust is like huge, like huge in sisterhood, like so big. Like for me, it was really, I think that in the past, just because I had been so heartbroken around, you know, my relationship dynamic, whether it be with my sisters, whether it be with the mother archetype or with my actual mother, was so heartbroken just because of, you know, feelings of unworthiness that may subconsciously have been programmed into my mind from, you know, those modes of competition, comparison, whatever it may be, that I didn't have trust. And how you said you tried to like control and sort of
that's
make
totally
things
coming
happen
from that place of lack of trust.
I think that for me, I would try to like control people's perceptions of me.
Oh, of course. Yes.
And also in doing that, create these kind of trauma bonds of wanting to, in trying to control people's perceptions of me, also trying to be, I guess it is still people pleasing, but like wanting to be liked by everyone, and also wanting just to be able to like do everything, be everyone's mother, because I didn't feel like I had that, you know, nurturing energy all the time. So I think that definitely to break down those barriers, it has to be a certain level of trust, because I have to be vulnerable enough to have conversations about, you know, why I may have problems trusting, why I may try to in the past control someone's perception of me or a narrative in an argument because I feel defensive or like I'm not safe in this space to make mistakes, whatever the case may be. So like trust on literally every level. Trust that if I'm vulnerable to you and I tell you my deepest, darkest secret, you're not gonna judge me and you're not gonna tell people my business that unnecessarily or, you know, try to use it against me later. And I think that that just comes with time, of course. That may sound cliche, but it's true. And it also comes with an equal commitment to sisterhood. It has to be equal. It cannot be imbalanced. And as we've learned, the scales change, you know,
all the time.
Whoever's in a more feminine energy or more masculine, a more doing energy, it switches. It gets balanced out.
And for us, like you had more father wounding and I had more mother wounding. But growing up, I always thought I had more father wounding. But in reality, I had way more mother wounding than I realized.
It's the same for me, but opposite. So absolutely.
You don't know what you could be offering somebody by being that other half they may need in that moment. Obviously, it's not your job. It's not the only job you have, but like it kind of is. It's like not like your job in the toxic way, as in like I have to like be committed to this person, but it's like I feel like I want to be committed to this, and I want to work hard for this. I want to be as good as I can be, and relinquishing, like allowing you to decide what type of sister you want to be, and not forcing you to be whatever I want you to be or need you to be, has been refreshing. And then seeing the ways that you show up, it's like not always my love language, but I most times appreciate it because I feel like that I know that that's what you like. And you've taught me to be more open to that, like new ways of loving.
We had to take a break to get some more tea.
In hindsight, it's like I already had that in you guys. I just felt so different. I felt so different from people. And we've talked about before, like I mostly lived inside my head. Like I didn't want to really speak to people. And if I did speak, it was just what would you want to hear from me, basically. You know, I kind of lived from that place. So I desperately wanted a friend, especially who was a girl, who was just like me.
Yeah.
And then as I got older and I mingled in like public school and like got to be around, like in high school, I still kind of kept my blinders on to expanding, you know, my group. And the group that I ended up being with kind of chose me. I never ventured out past that group. And then as I got older, I realized trying to find someone who's exactly like you would be so boring.
Yeah.
And I think that I had to learn that first. Like, don't go out and find people who are exactly like you.
Yeah.
Find people who challenge you. Find sisters who, you know, want to nurture you in the ways that you didn't get to receive. Like, do something new. Try something new. Don't settle for the same exact people. And that was something I had to double back on, was like, oh shit, like these people that I keep attracting are so similar to the environment I grew up in. If you're seeking for someone who's exactly like you, chances are you could probably find those people, but are they challenging you? And then, you know, now that I've experienced trying to meld with so many different types of people and falling in love with people who are like me maybe, but are different, like I think why it never really came through for me or manifested for me, it's like because I already had it in a way.
Yeah.
So it's like I didn't need to find people who were gonna be to a T me, you know?
Yeah. And I think it helps to like ask yourself, if you're constantly trying to find people exactly like you, where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
Because it may be a reflection of your experience, like you said, feeling so alone or feeling like you were so different from other people.
Yeah.
Of course you're gonna want to find like an outer validation of like, okay, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
But it's just, I literally laugh when you talk about like feeling like there was no one out there that liked the same things as you, because I think us as siblings, like we all kind of went through that moment of feeling very alone, like at our different moments. And I know that I did, and feeling like no one fully knows me. Like even my closest friend does not fully know my interests and who I truly am.
Yeah.
And it was just funny because now looking back, like you guys always knew me.
Yeah.
But I never saw you guys as like capable of filling that position just because of like certain blockages.
I feel like
so that is just wild to like wrap my head around.
No, it's very wild
all around.
And it made me think like I never necessarily knew that there was a more authentic self, if that made sense. It's like I wanted to know myself more deeply, but I didn't know that it was possible for me to be more authentic. So it's like I didn't subconsciously I did not allow myself to believe like these people don't know me. I didn't allow myself to believe that.
When you're
it's like,
in it.
Because I was trying to maintain those relationships. So it's like, I don't have time to think about whether there's a different part of me that's better or happier.
I'm just trying to keep up this, whatever it is.
I'm trying to make everybody happy right now.
Yeah.
That's all I care about.
Yes. I definitely relate
being
to
liked.
that. And like trying to keep people around and trying to like, for me, it was always be the best friend that I can be. Like be that mom of the group.
Yeah.
And obviously it was to some degree a distraction. Like it obviously has shows that I have good qualities of like being a nurturer, a good listener, showing up for people. But when it's to my detriment, I'm ignoring my own issues and my own traumas and problems. Like obviously that's not for my benefit. And I think that also speaks to like what healthy sisterhood is. A healthy sisterhood is not something that would ask of you to ignore yourself and to ignore your shadow self or any part of yourself.
That's a
or
great
deny
point.
any part of yourself, like even your interests, no matter what it is. I think that you've really taught me like no judgment. Like no judgment. Like whatever you bring to the table, like if anything, you're irritating me because you're keeping it in the shadows. Like just be honest. Like that's how you more so,
because I could feel it. I'm like, I feel this heaviness, let's just get through this.
And now that you've set the tone with that within our friendship, sisterhood, I think that I've learned that for other areas of my life. Like just be honest.
Honesty is the best policy, and I just truly believe that. Like I'd rather be honest with you. Like, yeah, I broke your pencil, dude. Like, I know
Yeah.
that you love this pencil, but it's broken.
It's
And
true.
I'll pay for it if you want me to pay for it, but that's just what it is right now.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why a place of safety in sisterhood where there isn't shame and judgment is
Yeah.
essential.
It's essential,
And I'm
yes.
realizing, especially for me, coming from the place I come from, of like going to a private school where you have certain rules and certain expectations of you constantly, like
Very militant. Like,
yeah, I need an environment where I'm like encouraged, if anything, to make mistakes
Yes.
and to speak up even if I'm wrong.
Absolutely.
And to admit my wrongdoings and apologize and own up to them,
Yeah.
instead of carrying shame and hiding away and trying to like be in denial all the time, because that made me a literal shell of myself, not being honest with myself about my mistakes.
Do you ever remember a time, though those relationships may not have lasted, was there a time within a certain relationship that you did feel seen?
Yeah.
And like without pressure, without confinement?
Yeah.
And can you elaborate on it?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's crazy.
Like,
I feel like
really be descriptive, because like whatever you're naming, it's what you should seek,
Yeah.
moving forward,
Definitely. It's like how my therapist had told me to think about in relationships or friendships, whatever it is, red flags and green flags. Also focus on the green flags too, so then you know what to look for, like you said. But I could think of like 2 circumstances specifically, and I told you about one of them the other day.
Yeah.
It was where like I was feeling really down, not like myself, and I was in high school, so I was going through a lot emotionally, teenage hormones, all of the things, suppressed trauma, all of the things. And I had like texted a friend of mine that I wasn't feeling my best, and I was like feeling really low. And like without a thought, she just came to my house and just snuggled up with me and just like held me as I cried. And I was like, wow, like this is
pure.
This is pure. This is
I remember
unconditional love.
that you
This
said
is
too, like
acceptance.
she didn't ask you
She didn't
anything.
say anything.
She didn't say anything. She just was like, whatever it is, it's valid.
I felt so seen.
Yeah.
Like I literally could cry.
love that.
I felt very seen. And I think it was also because at the time I had felt like not always safe to express my emotions, to know that someone was like, I understand you even when you're this highly emotional being, is like different. So different, because my emotional self is like probably my most authentic self, my most vulnerable self.
Yeah.
So it was like, wow, like this is pretty freaking cool.
Nice.
And the other circumstance I was gonna say would be just in general, when I moved to New York and I started working at a gym, some of the women that I worked with just really like took me under their wing and really guided me, whether it be like, referring me to someone to get my hair done, or taking me to get my first wig ever so I could have my edges slayed and like everything, like those more materialistic things. But like I needed it. I needed someone to like affirm to me at that time that it's okay to like take up this space and feel beautiful and take care of yourself. And they were all about that. So that was, I think they gave me that, and then I gave them affirmation and love in other ways. So it was just a beautiful exchange the more that I think about it. And just a reflection of how seriously, like, even if you may not have always gotten it, you can find motherly love, you can find sisterly love in so many different places, in so many different friendships, and so many different like paths in your life from different women, and it's not limited to one thing. And that is insane. Like anyone could show up as your nurturer today.
Yes.
And you could show up as someone else's nurturer.
Absolutely.
And so that is like sick.
No, it's insane. It's insane. That's something I like, especially love about womanhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you can meet a mother in someone who's so much younger than you.
Yeah.
And then you can meet a mother in someone who's so much older than you, or a friend or a sister, whatever.
I'm realizing like motherliness, like that energy is a superpower.
Yeah.
Like it is very healing.
Yeah.
It is very healing.
Yeah.
And I guess that speaks to what sisterhood is a reflection of, but it also made me think of how we said on Sex Education. If you watch that show, then
Yeah.
the 2 characters in it talk
Maeve
about
and her friend.
Yeah.
What's the other character's name?
Maeve and Amy. Is it Amy or is
Mm-hmm.
yeah?
It is Amy.
They talk about mothering each other.
Yes.
They don't have
Yeah.
mothers.
And we definitely have done that in our dynamic for sure.
Probably my first girl best friend in like kindergarten.
Yeah.
But she was always like the one girl in the class talking to the boys and stuff. And then I'd go to her house and she'd be like, well, I messaged so-and-so on whatever I am.
No way.
Whatever. And she would like, just, I don't know, it was an example kind of like, I guess that part of womanhood, although we were literally in first grade and probably should have been messaging boys.
My first, best friend, she was the most mellow person ever, like the most non-judgmental person ever. I feel like we were actually talking about this the other day. Like she knew me in a way that I didn't know me. But we weren't friends for long. I think she ended up changing schools or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm like, dude, first best friends just like, they have magical powers or something.
It's like maybe because, I don't know. I felt like she just wasn't judgmental. So I was like, cool. I can do that. I can match you in that. We can vibe.
Is it a reflection of what you need most, or like, is it a reflection of what you're able to attract when your mind is so much in your innocence or something?
I want to believe it's the awareness of innocence, because you don't really care.
Yeah.
You don't really care who you're seen with at that point.
Yeah.
And she wasn't like the most popular person, but like me and her together were the duo, you know? So it's like, I was cool with that. I was cool with like, you don't have to be cool. Like, even though it was like 3rd grade.
I see you. Friend that like led me into sisterhood, showed me to be my creative self too. Like my silly self, and like we would be dancing together and whatever else. Like no judgment there, you know? Not trying to be too grown still. Like still getting to be kids.
That was the beauty, is like, I guess, because everyone's significant, you know? But the people that I cherish the most, I guess, were the ones that didn't care about growing up too soon or whatever. Yeah. For sure.
And fitting in.
Yeah.
Fitting in is a scam.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay to not fit in. What does sisterhood mean to you? And this could be a couple of words. What it feels like, what it means to you in your life, how you define it, any of the things.
It's specifically sisterhood, I would say. And it's like, when I'm trying to describe it, it's going to sound, you could apply it to anything.
Yeah.
And just, so before I say all this, just like everything is so interconnected, you know?
This is, as we're talking about this, I'm realizing it. I'm like, it's connected to friendship, motherhood. It's connected to how you feel about yourself. Like everything.
So sisterhood to me is just like someone who can nurture your soul. And doesn't feel like the need to see you as the enemy. Even if like you're triggered, you know? Because I think that's a big part of sisterhood, is like being triggered. And I think the next thing, especially what me and you are working on, is like intimacy. Yeah. And this is like kind of off topic, but I think a lot of people, like, we just have so much negative things so rampant in this society. We tolerate so much. I always like blame porn, but I think that there's a lot of factors, and we harbor so much guilt and shame because of these lower dense energies that, you know, there's people who create so many different podcasts and things to help people out of that space. But, you know, we get projected this gross sexual energy onto us, especially like men. Sad, because we need intimacy. Like with the whole pandemic, like we should all be aware, like we need intimacy. It's like not oh, maybe we could all live off grid and like live miles and miles away from each other and not, you know, contact each other, and or I could go however long being isolated. So I would say it's like healthy intimacy and like safety, nurturing, and feeling seen, like feeling like it's not about what you have, it's not about what you're doing,
it's not about what you wear or how you look.
And that something that's what I'm looking for in my sisterhood is obviously non-judgment, compassion, intimacy, and you allow me to be multidimensional, and therefore I can show up for you in all those different ways. And then vice versa. I'm not holding you to this one thing that you can only be.
Yeah.
I'm here for the long haul. I'm ready for longevity in my relationships, because like when I see my sisterhood in the future, and that's why we have True. Eventually we want to start our own little coven. We joke.
Yes.
We joke it's going to be a coven.
Yeah.
But
honestly.
like, especially like I am someone who eventually wants kids. Like my mom had 4. Like, of course I'm going to want kids, and her mom had 4. Like, so I just want to be able to raise my children around my sisters, you know, a group of women who gets it, and we understand that we can all show up for each other in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's what sisterhood is to me.
Sisterhood prioritizes platonic intimacy. That part.
That part.
Because it does.
Yeah.
It does. You can't, I mean, unless you were befriending someone with the agenda of wanting more than that, then that's a different story. But like, it does force you to not try to, you know, envy someone, but also not try to encapsulate them or take from them. You have to just respect for who they are, what they have from outside, and you can do that because you love and respect what you bring to the table.
And like, I didn't understand what unconditional love was in the past. I myself, my sexuality is fluid, I would like to say. I think I'm fluid, but at the end of the day, my deepest desire is to be with a man. Trying to claim me sexually, especially, it's like you are not valuing, you know, the relationship to begin with. You just want this possession, I guess.
Yeah.
In this like kind of toxic way.
It's like, are you even seeing me?
Yeah.
And it's just,
or you're just seeing like my body.
It's just as if it was a male friend, you know, that wanted something more. It's the same. You feel like there's other agendas happening here, and I may not be on your same page, especially if I don't want to pursue something further with you.
Yes, that was really hard to admit to myself, that like there were women that were doing that to me.
Yeah.
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 That's big, but I guess something to take note of when talking about sisterhood, though, because I don't know, that could create blockages, that creates miscommunication,
for me,
misunderstandings,
it's ruined relationships, and not because I was like, oh, you like me, we have to not be friends anymore, but it was just like, you're always going to be pushing me for more than I want. So it's like when I feel that pressure from someone, even if it's just energetic,
not respecting the boundary
there.
Are you sure? Are you sure you don't want this? Like, no.
It's like,
accept me for where I'm at, not for who you want me to be for you.
And then that makes me feel like the villain if I continue to hang out with you, if you're going to see me that way, as this big bad person who just can't lend over that other half of myself, when I'm not resonating with you on that level.
And that doesn't mean I don't care about you and love you deeply as a friend.
I can love you very deeply and not want to hook up. Okay, yes. How has your view of sisterhood evolved throughout the years?
I am so excited to get into like further what that looks like for me. And like, even in the past couple of years, there's been a couple of like women that I've connected with, even through social media, that I'm just like in awe of, and I just watch from a distance, and we kind of build this, you know, those social media friendships where you haven't really met yet, but it's like still really cool to think about that in the future I could have really cool friendships in a community filled with women such as this. Like, that inspires me a lot, and to envision that I would be able to just travel and to learn and to explore life and share with these people would be the dream, honestly. So I think that really speaks to how my vision of sisterhood has evolved, because I guess I used to see it as something that used to be based in like a bond that wasn't necessarily based on like the best growth for each party involved. I think I was more so focused on trying to always pour into and not necessarily receive, and seeing more of what I bring to the table that could allow me to be an equal to such amazing people, and like thinking more highly of myself and having more self-worth. Maybe that's the biggest thing that's impacted my view of sisterhood, is having more self-worth and seeing what I bring to the table that could be of service or helpful to another woman, in a like deep and nurturing way, has been a greatly evolved perspective within myself, I would say.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Based in like celebration of life. And also just you get to show up fully as your authentic self, and you get to share what you feel and be safe here no matter what it is. So yeah, I guess that's what it is. Maybe partially that's what it's always been, but that's just what it means to me today. Like, specifically between our dynamic, and it really made me think of something that's changed over the years for me. Being vulnerable at the basis of sisterhood, and having trust at the basis of that, that's definitely something that has changed the way that I view it and changed the way that I live it, I guess. I think within our dynamic, you just allowing me to show up as I am and lend me that trust as much as I'm lending you that trust helps me to trust myself. You encourage me to like believe in myself and to take better care of myself. And I think that is that's the smartest relationship dynamic, is in even a romantic relationship, whatever it may be, someone that encourages and makes you want to love yourself and take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because the second that you're allowed the space to do that and really show up for yourself, you can better show up for those other people.
Yeah.
So like you pouring that into each other, just it will never end. It will literally be everyone's cup always is full.
It's full. Yeah.
So I think that's very powerful.
Dope. I love that.
What has sisterhood taught you most about yourself? I like this question.
It's taught me to befriend myself. Like kind of what you said.
Yeah.
Because most of life is kind of navigating through like enemies and haters. I think especially through childhood, like bullies or limitations. It doesn't have to actually be a person.
Yeah.
Just like expectation, limitations, pressure, navigating so much.
Yeah.
So it's like the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone, and how I treat myself is how I will be treated. And when I was like gaslighting myself or being super critical of myself, I met more people like that, just generally. Yeah. And I had to work through that karma with those relationships. Yeah. So the karma that I was building up myself. So yeah, it taught me to be way kinder, to relax. Yeah. But specifically not to like just friends. Like my siblings, like I said in the beginning, taught me how to love myself. So like when I'm speaking to you and I'm speaking to Kitra, I feel like I'm speaking to myself. And I think that if that triggers you, it's because in a negative way, like negative as in I'm hurting your feelings. Yeah. It's like that's the pressure point I'm putting on myself. You know, that's this negative thing that I'm doing to myself as well. Yeah. But if it's triggering you in a way that's, you know, forcing you to see your shadow, it's like, then I know I'm doing my job. Yeah. But also I know I'm working on it too. I know that I'm getting through the thing that I want to see in you. Yeah. And I feel like soul work, even just in general, has taught me that like your soul's essence is so much different than these tiny little labels we slap on ourselves or these boxes we sit in that are just so comfortable because it just makes things make sense. Yeah. But your soul does not make sense. Yeah. Nothing about being a spiritual being living inside a physical body really makes sense. Makes much sense. Yeah. So we try to like categorize things as much as we can, and that's also a beautiful thing, but yeah, we just aim to feel understood, I feel. Yes. So yes. Reaching a point of limitlessness is what sisterhood pushes me to do. Because then you can create relationships that you thought especially weren't possible, especially when you were younger, you know. Yeah. I don't know why I feel like I want to give a short answer to this question as well. It makes me emotional to think about, but like kind of piggybacking off of what you said,
Sisterhood forces me to see the beauty in myself.
I have a video on our YouTube channel about intuition and dreams and womanhood, the divine feminine. So that's a big thing that I'm seeking in my friends, is like non-competitiveness, someone who lives in a mindset of like abundance.
Yes.
So that way you don't have to feel like what I have you can't ever achieve or is impossible for you. Yeah. Someone who lives in gratitude. I feel like those are qualities of a divine feminine woman. Someone who respects their body, respects other people's bodies and decisions. There's so many different, how we talked earlier about like you can meet so many different people, mothers, sisters, friends, and it doesn't matter like what age or what time in life that you run into them, but that there's one specific group of archetypes that I truly always fall back into, which is the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And so it taught me that I can be all these different people for other people, you know. And obviously labels suck and things, like categorizing yourself into 3 simple things is like
still limiting ways,
but using that as a jumping point, that I can be the maiden, the seductress, you know, the wild child who's figuring things out, or the mother who's grounded and creative and sensual, or the crone who gets it, like just gets it, you know. But is also, you know, a light for other people or a healer for other people. So a lot, really. And even that there's 3 of us girls, you know,
so interesting.
I think that we each carry our own like dominant energy. And I think that when you come into the world with such a different or unique energy or perspective or whatever, you're definitely meant to influence other people, even if they don't agree with you and comply with you. It's like, to some degree, your perspective is challenging someone else's perspective, and that's creating rifts in their reality, and they're gonna have to work through that and decide what side of the fence not really decide what side of the fence, but, you know,
work through triggers if they're triggered, or decide like, that's not how I want to live, but I respect how you're living still.
Coming to a new understanding. So that's tea.
Everything you said is just literally tea. Like learning to accept and validate the parts of you and just other women in general, with practicing non-judgment and unconditional love. It just forces me to see that beauty within myself. And like also, like I had a deep moment of sort of heartbreak for realization of like how many women around me felt possibly out of touch with their inner child, as I did at one point in time, and felt like you're not safe to be your sensitive self. So kind of experiencing that heartbreak for my own self as you like are reaching from teenage years into womanhood, and then seeing around me that other women might have experienced that. I think it just made me have a lot more compassion for other women, and then in turn myself, I was like, damn, like life can be hard. Like, life can be hard, and I'm heartbroken when other women specifically like feel like they can't be their authentic self, whatever that means, their emotional self, their outspoken self, it doesn't matter, their, you know, bougie self, creative self, like that breaks my heart. So the only way that to continue mending that within myself is to mend that within myself first, and to literally show up for myself and allow myself to be all of those things that I once thought that maybe I couldn't. So the more I can see that beauty in myself and allow myself to let that
shine,
freak flag fly, whatever the case, whatever you want to call it, I can hopefully inspire other women to do the same, and hopefully attract women that have the same intentions. And I think I definitely have found one in the same with you.
I feel like you're like, I have Scorpio placements in like the specific places that make me talk about the things that no one wants to talk about, taboo topics. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But you inspired me to talk about also like the shadowy, like are shadow sisters, I would say. Like those people who are literally just there to be your opposition and to challenge you and to push you out of your comfort zone. Because I feel like I've dealt with so much of that recently.
Yeah.
And well, just throughout life, but I'm growing to understand that like if I don't like someone or someone doesn't like me, that does not necessarily mean that our relationship has to be tumultuous.
Yeah.
That I can work through it. And a lot of times, like the things, everyone always says this, the things that we see that we don't like in other people, it's like what we don't like about ourselves. So yes, I kind of touched on that a little bit.
I was thinking that it is a reflection of your own discord within yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
It for sure is.
And that, like, compassion that I've learned to develop with my shadow, but also my shadow sisters. It's like,
I like that term.
I think I'm gonna start saying that because I feel like
nice.
It makes me humanize that person instead of demonize them or villainize them or victimize myself. So it's like I can be on the other end of your envy or your hate or whatever it is or your manipulation, but I also trust, like I said, there is a higher power. That energy will continue to come back to you. So it's like also knowing that you're protected. Wish them compassion and wish them consciousness. Wish them to see you a little more clear, maybe. And it's hard to be that vulnerable with someone you feel is an enemy. And turning the other cheek sometimes feels like defeat, to be honest.
It does. It feels like you're just giving your power away.
It does. But I think we give our power away when we're, I don't know, making them to be so much bigger and badder than they truly are. Appreciation for that opposition. Because in the end, whatever I'm learning from you, I'm going to use it. And it might be better than what you've been using it for.
Damn, that's crazy.
So don't hand me that power. Don't make me your enemy. Don't make me your competition. Because you might be handing me over something that belongs to you and that you should have been using. That was your strength. But I realized too, it's not one-sided. I'm happy to help you temper yourself. Yeah. Just don't see me as your opposition. Yeah. I'm just you experiencing.
Don't demonize me then for you having to learn something from me. Yeah. I think that you calling it shadow sisters and like holding space for those type of people in our life with more compassion is like something I need to work on myself. So I like the way that you put that.
Well, the negative would be treating your shadow sister like your light sisters, which your light and shadow sisters should have both. They should have both shadow and light. That's to begin with. But I'm saying light as in someone who's choosing to see your higher self and continue to help you work on that rather than someone who wants to watch you just self-destruct.
Triggered by you. So you both kind of trigger each other in that way, maybe. Yes.
And so, we should have said that before. But I just feel like there's the negative would be handing your power over to that shadow person completely. So I'm not saying like, I remember one time I tweeted something like forgiveness is like the best thing you could do for yourself or something to that degree. And somebody quoted it and was like, forgive, like I'm not forgiving, like da-da-da. Because people are in sometimes that circumstance where you have to draw a heavy boundary and like be like, I'm not tolerating this. But that's the difference. Is like you can set boundaries. You cannot tolerate certain things. You can continue to heal and work yourself out of projection. But you can at the same time understand what that person's doing for you. Yeah. For example, the person I'm referring to as I'm speaking on this, it's like that person brought me back to a lot of my shadow. Things that I discarded that I thought were unhealthy or like not helpful. Yeah. And so I'm glad that you now made me reconsider and have this conversation with myself where I'm integrating so much more into myself and I don't have to worry it being imbalanced until it gets to that point, because it always does. Like that's a part of life, is the ups and the downs. Yeah. But for now, it's like I feel like I'm hitting a tempered state. Work through those blocks that were stopping me from showing up and shining in the way that I deserved. Damn. We pick each other apart, but we also are picking apart ourselves, you know?
Yeah. So to some degree. Yeah. I could definitely see that. Yeah. Yeah, the whole concept of just being more compassionate for someone that you might trigger, and then in turn that triggers you because you trigger them, and you may just want to be cool with them or want to be friends, or like
and
not
you're not
to
gonna
enable them in that way, but also not to demonize them.
Yeah.
I think
non-judgment.
And you saying this has made me realize what could really help me and maybe help someone else working through this is to know that even though they are in this circumstance with you, your shadow sister, they're not that way to everybody.
No.
They're not the villain in everyone's story.
No.
And so therefore they are not the villain. There's so many facets that they can be seen as.
That was so hard for me as a child
Yeah.
to wrap my head around. I was only responding in the way that I knew how, forcing me to do that same work that I couldn't do at that time, rather than putting someone down.
Something probably a lot of women could relate to, whether you're on the receiving end or you're the perpetrator. And I think I could relate to even being the perpetrator in an instance where like I'm trying to protect a friend or I'm trying to kind of put myself in between other people's beef or something.
Yeah.
And I speak negative words upon another woman. And I have to, face myself and deal with that within myself. And it's like, love yourself enough to know that real sisterhood is not tearing another woman down in any circumstance, whether it's to, get back at a man or whether it's to people please a friend.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it.
How you deal with those tower moments or those moments that feel so unfair really defines like your character, but like how you love yourself. It's like it's telling. It's telling.
A reflection.
It's telling.
And that's why, bro, like to tear each other down for our mistakes, even when people are being shitty, is like silly.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of how you feel about yourself.
Yes, for sure.
And we should have compassion and like hold space for that, because it's real as fuck out here.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not gonna be perfect. You're gonna be angry at people. It's just gonna happen. But it's as much as we can refine and like realize the bigger picture, like life is way too short. And to hold that much anger about a person is just a waste of energy. So as fast as you can, release whatever's making you feel like you have to cling to this black and white thinking or irrational thinking.
Yeah.
As soon as you can clear it, because it's a blockage to something else, whether it's like sisterhood or love or anything.
I'm realizing if it is providing only like an ultimatum with that black and white thinking, it's likely to be like you're not seeing it clearly anyways. That is so true. Like it shouldn't be just this person's bad or this person's good. This person's my friend or this person's my enemy.
We're so good and bad. We're everything. We're all things.
One more question.
Go ahead.
How important is sisterhood to you in your life?
It's 100% important because of our situation right now. We have been all we have for like so long, and I always pray every day. Like most people think I'm just running and hiding and living in isolation intentionally, but I swear to you, this is like what this period in my life is really about. Like I spent my early 20s and late teens partying and going wild and I think that God, universe, whatever, really was like, hey, I need you to work through these familial issues with your sister and learn how to be in a platonic relationship with someone and learn how to receive. You've taught me how to receive. So in my life, it's extremely important. And then for my future, it's like, not only do I want to own many businesses as a woman, I want to collaborate with women. I want to change the way we raise children in general. So it's like I need my sisters to back me on my ideas and my vision that I have. True, I want to grow with me. Sisterhood is amazing. I think I'm not where I want to be in sisterhood because I haven't ventured out into exploring and meeting new people just yet. But I'm happy that I'm where I am because I'm developing what was first initially important to me to begin with before my vision got blurred by what people were projecting to us as sisters, like to compete with each other or whatever have you, or like you can't be friends with your sister, like that's not cool, or they're too young, or whatever it was. And then on into the future, being able to still have that tribe sense of like, me and my girls, we get it. It's whose birthday? Okay, we're showing up where, like we're doing homeschooling where, like Absolutely. My mind really thinks that way, especially when it comes to womanhood. Even if I physically don't have children, I will always be that mother to whoever.
For sure.
You know, you need a babysitter.
Yeah.
You and your man going where for the date? Okay, cool. Drop them off.
I'm there.
Yeah. Or like you had a baby. Okay, I'll make you dinner this week. You know, I would love to have that same support. Or you're on your period. Cool. Let's go on a date, like, and go to the movies and wear sweatpants.
Seriously.
It's an understanding.
Yeah.
You know,
a balanced sense of community.
Absolutely. It's so important to me.
For sure.
And women are a huge part of community.
Yeah. Of course.
we make the babies, we create, like we literally foster
givers of life,
the next generation.
Literally.
For sure. Go ahead.
It's crazy.
I want to hear.
I'm trying to think if I have anything to add to that. I think you really hit a lot of the marks of how important sisterhood is. I think really touching upon like where that deep love comes from is everything. Like I really wanted friends that I could show up for. And like you really be there saying. For
and I think
like I'm here with the gifts, I'm here for the celebration, I'm here. The words to best describe it is showing up. And I guess that in friendship and sisterhood specifically, maybe because as women we can often get very comfortable in our receptive and feminine energy. People can get excited when they realize you're that kind of person, like yes, I am going to show up and I'm going to show out for you. So
and I am too, but for me it's like emotionally,
this is like a whole nother layer to sisterhood, because it's like looking out for another sister. There may be discord there. Like you may think you're looking out for your sister and they may be like, nah, like I got this. When you do communicate something to your friend, they might not necessarily be on the same page or be at that understanding yet. Allowing them the space to get there on their own. And something I'm realizing is like if you keep circling back to that lesson, then there's something that you're still learning. I think about romantic relationships that I thought I would never heal from, and over time what happened? I healed. And even if there's still moments where I have to like talk about certain things or talk through certain memories or feelings, I'm still healing far from where I started. So I kind of try to see the friendship wounds that same way, just so I can remain like hopeful in that. Like one day with time and with the work that I'm doing, being honest with myself and seeing what I really learned from these circumstances, I can truly heal. I think it's just making me realize the things that I continue to circle back to with this lesson is like the things I'm working through. It's like when you continue in your conversation to want to come back to something, like that is highlighting what you're working through.
Just turned into like a confessional.
I know, it did. I'm very excited to continue learning and growing with this podcast and continue sitting with my sister and having these beautiful conversations. Amen. And revealing ourselves to the world in confidence. The Awaken podcast with Sharun and Tyra. Thank you guys for listening and for joining us in this space to have a sacred conversation, to have a real conversation.
Stay true.
And stay true, loves.